Hello. Welcome to Muscle Science for Women. We're so glad you're here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. Listen,
she
2
really
seconds
means
ago.
it. Listen, we really mean it.
Why
Even
did that
though
sound?
That might not have sounded like we really mean it. We do really mean it.
If you guys were watching on YouTube and you saw my face, you would know that I was being sincere. Just, I kind of always sound a little bit either cynical or sarcastic. That's who I am. Not changing it for 2023, guys.
Yeah, don't.
I really am happy you're here,
it.
though. Okay.
Yeah, and you should subscribe to our channels on YouTube and just watch us on YouTube.
I mean,
and listen on your podcast too, and maybe give us a review on your podcast platform. That would just be super cool.
All of that would be great. That would be
amazing.
So cool. And it's so much more entertaining to look at us because usually we're being silly in one way or another. Or maybe there's a dog.
Yeah, there's a dog.
You look great. Your hair is like on point today.
Done,
it's just...
but I look a little like pale because my light. I'm like trying to find the right light. So every episode is different. I might look like an Oompa Loompa one day. I might look like a green monster one day. Who knows?
You got to tune in to find out. Yep. You got to tune in to find out. That's it. Okay. Let's dive right into it. We got a couple good questions. And I just want to get started because we like to go on tangents. We could be here for a while. Okay. Let's start with a classic. I will try to, like, when we get questions, if we already covered it in a previous podcast, just like link that podcast in the show notes because we do tend to get like repeated ones. And this is one of those, but I don't know if we ever actually answered it like really specifically. So we'll just do it again. But somebody asked, what's the deal with how much protein you can actually metabolize per meal? A lot of people have heard this thing about how you can only, use 30 grams of protein per meal or at a time. And if you eat more than that, it's just going to be wasted or it's going to turn into fat or something. What is the deal? How much protein can we eat at once? How much can we handle? And, how should that be maybe helping us make food planning decisions, right?
Yeah, for sure. Do you want me to, I can try to answer this as simple as possible.
Do that. That'd be good.
Okay. So first thing I'll say is that we have a very complex answer and go through all of it and all the details in our program in one of our nutrition lectures, I believe. So sign up for the program if you want the, the full breakdown. But basically, the answer is you don't waste protein. The amount of protein you consume, you're still using it for all the different processes in your body that protein uses, which is a lot. Where people get this confused is that there actually is a cap on the amount of protein that when you consume it, it goes to the muscle building processes, right? So muscle protein synthesis. This is something called the muscle full effect. So the amount of protein you consume to a degree, once you go beyond that, it doesn't really have any benefit from a muscle building perspective. However, it's not like you consume protein above 30 grams and 30 grams, I would say it's different for everybody. It depends on kind of your size. So it could be 30 grams for someone, it could be 40 grams for someone, it could even be 50 grams for someone. If they have a ton of muscle, right? The more muscle you have, the more kind of sink you have to soak the protein up, the carbs up, all that jazz. So it's not like an exact, 30 grams and that's it. So that's one thing to realize. But yes, once you get to that certain kind of threshold for yourself, the amount of protein you consume does not have any the extra protein you consume does not have an extra benefit towards the muscle protein synthesis effects of building muscle, right? With that being said, that protein still has a use in your body and it goes and does its thing in other areas that are still beneficial. So it's not like you eat over a certain amount of protein and you just like poop it out. Maybe, yeah, you poop out some of it, but there's still so many processes in our body that use protein that it's not just like a quote unquote waste. So that's the simplest way that I can put it, I guess, if that makes sense.
So for folks who, because I always tell people, like, again, sort of a simplified version of this is like, maybe don't worry so much about overeating protein because it's not usually a problem for most people. Like, you'd have to work pretty hard. Like if you're going to be cutting anywhere or like managing anywhere, fat and carbs, you should probably be going in that direction over protein. However, if we're talking about women who are maybe smaller, looking to do a cut, focused on body composition. And so calories do matter, and they don't want to be overeating really anything if they can avoid it. How does someone go about figuring out what their kind of max per meal really should be?
So I would say the easiest way is if you are someone who's not like overweight by like 30 or even 40 plus pounds, like that's, I kind of use that threshold, like 40 plus pounds overweight. I would determine your protein based off of your goal body weight. So like a gram per pound of your goal body weight. But if you are 40 pounds and under, then I would base your protein off of a gram per pound of your body weight, and even a little bit higher if you want, because we have so much research out that shows that, protein doesn't hurt your kidneys. High protein doesn't hurt your kidneys unless you have a pre-existing kidney issue or disease. Then that's another thing to talk to your doctor about. But for most of us, even for me, when I go into like just general, I probably consume like 1.2 grams per pound of body weight in protein. And then sometimes I've even gone up to like 1.5. And that's just because I enjoy eating protein, keeps me full, all that stuff. So that's how I would kind of determine it. And then really the easiest way to think about breaking that up throughout the day is like, okay, now you have your daily protein goal, which is the most important thing. Let's break that up into even servings, 3 to 5 meals throughout the day, depending however, many meals that you like to consume, whether that's 3 main meals or, 3 main meals and 2 snacks or whatever, right? If you're someone who only eats 2 main meals, maybe you're eating 2 main meals and 1 snack. It's just simple as that. Find your daily protein goal and then divide it up evenly throughout the day. And ideally, you'll be eating 25 grams plus at each of those main meals. That's coming from protein that is complete protein source, right? So that most, all animal proteins are complete if you are vegetarian or vegan, consuming, combining incomplete proteins like rice and beans, things like that to make a complete protein, or supplementing with some type of protein powder. Those would be the ways that I would go about that. And you don't have to get that much more complex than that, in my opinion. What do you think?
No, I think that's perfect. I think that's literally the exact right explanation for the vast majority of people. If you want to dive deeper, we do have a program that gets more into detail and helps you figure things out, every macro, everything. And that's Muscle Science for Women. Obviously, you can sign up now and hang out with us, and we'll be your virtual coaches. But yeah, I mean, for the vast majority of people, I think that's an excellent like sort of foundation and starting point. And again, the sort of overarching message that like, don't worry about it. Like, this is the thing, like we have a hard enough time getting women to eat a baseline amount of enough protein. And we get these messages all the time. Like, well, what if I eat too much, or is there too much, or is it going to like injure me or like make me fat or whatever? And it's like, this is one area maybe don't worry so much about. Like, you're probably not going to overeat protein. And even if you do a little bit, it's fine. If you're going to overeat anything, maybe make it protein. Probably not going to hurt you. So and there's like that.
And I'll just finish with this because there is research that overeating protein has shown to actually not increase body fat compared to other macros. Obviously this, there's a cap on that. You can't just eat like tons and tons and tons of proteins, like over your maintenance calories. But if, like you said, if you're going to overeat, if you're going to overconsume something, it should be protein, because it's the most forgivable macronutrient, I guess you could say. And then also, if you want to sign up for the program, musclescienceforwomen.com is our
ready now. We're ready. We're waiting for you. Join. It's the new year. Get on it. All right. You won't regret it. Okay. This is another big question that I've got asked from like in a couple different ways. And I think it's, again, an evergreen one that we may have touched on before, but we'll talk about it again. How the best way or how to come back to your fitness, to training, to building muscle after injury or illness. And again, this is a very wide, broad question. So we have to give you kind of a wide, broad answer. But my first thought I was reading, because this came from a couple different people, including a friend of mine who I know. So I was like, I think I know what your deal is. And like my first thought is when you say how, what's the best way to come back and build muscle and come back into fitness after injury or illness. And the first word that comes to me is slowly. Slowly. Don't rush. Don't be panicked. Don't come back to it from a place of I'm losing all my gains and I'm lazy now and I'm out of shape and everything's terrible. We all have illnesses and injuries. And one of the best ways to keep that injury or illness going is to rush back into a program that you're not ready for. And again, I like, yeah, we've all been there. You've been there. We've been there. We've talked about it many times. Just please do it in a thoughtful, progressive way. Maybe even go back into it, whatever your program you decide. Like if it's just, I don't know what the injury is or what the illness is, but if you want to go back to weightlifting, if you want to go back to a running program or whatever it is that you're doing, start slower even than you think you're ready for. Like if you're like, look, my injury's pretty much gone. I got the okay from my doctor to start again. Let's go back to whatever I was doing when the injury happened. Nope. Take it back a couple notches, because not, it's an ego check, right? Like you're trying to get back to being healthy, and pushing too hard is not the way to do it. So that's a very, again, vague, overarching thing, but I would just urge patience and perspective that if what you really want to do is get back to moving your body and being fit and going to the gym, you got to do it in a really measured, safe, careful, slow and steady way. And we've talked about this with whether it's body composition goals or building muscle. It doesn't happen quickly, no matter how hard you work. So the best way to do it is a way that's sustainable and healthy and isn't going to burn you out or put you at risk for getting sick and injured again. Right.
Yeah.
So that's that. But one of the specific sort of sub questions to this was, how do you build muscle when you have an injury that prevents you from lifting weight? So again, my response to this would be, first of all, it depends a lot, because if you injured your left bicep, there's probably still lots of weightlifting you can do, right? Safely. Depending on what the injury is, there are probably still weight bearing strength activities you can do. And that is why having a coach or an expert help you and help advise on a safe way to do that is really important. But the other part is, if you are currently actively dealing with an injury, is your goal building muscle right now? Probably shouldn't be, right? You can still move your body. You can still try to maintain what you have or minimize damage or minimize muscle loss. And a lot of that could probably come from recovery and rest and eating properly. But if you broke your leg, or if you have a tendon injury in your shoulder, maybe your first priority shouldn't be like, how can I get back into the gym and like crush building muscle, right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of, again, overarching answers that I think are important, like frameworks for how you move forward. Anyway.
100%. Yeah. And I agree with all that. And I'll just say too, and like most people know this, or maybe not, but when you get injured, and you come back from being off for a while, maybe it's not even an injury, just a while off from the gym, from following like a structured program, you will basically get that muscle back much quicker than it took to actually put it on in the first place, which is really cool. So you might feel like you go in after an injury and you're like, oh my God, my strength is completely gone. Like all my muscles are gone. Not the case. Like they come back much quicker. Strength, it will take a little while, but it won't be like you're starting from scratch. So that's something to understand too. Like you're definitely not starting from scratch. Even if you've taken like 6 months to a year off, like you still have muscle, and it will come back much quicker than it took to put it on. So that's one positive. And then kind of piggybacking off the second thing you said, focusing on the things that you can do and not the things that you can't do when you first come back is super, super important. That is something, like I was just dealing with my lower back flaring up a few months ago. It's been great now, past month, knock on wood. But during that time, it was really frustrating because with the lower back, it's like there's a lot of things that it hinders me from doing. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to like dwell on that. I'm going to focus on, okay, what can I do? Right? What are the things I can do? making sure I'm choosing the exercises that don't cause me pain, that are, conducive to, what I'm looking to get out of it, things like that. So focusing on what you can do, not what you can't do. And then also, like you said, too, depends on the injury, right? So what type is it, maybe your arm, like you said, I don't know, did you tear your bicep or something, or
sure,
whatever, you tore your bicep, right? In your right arm. So you can still do a lot of things, and you can absolutely still train your left arm. Obviously, you need to be very smart about the movements you're choosing and not overdoing it and all that stuff. But there is definitely research that shows that training one limb actually has a neurological effect and can elicit gains in the untrained limb, arm or leg. So if you tore your bicep and you're out for 6 months, whatever it is, you can still, once you get cleared, once you gradually come back, like you said, slow and, smart, you can train the other arm, the other bicep, and actually maintain some gains or even get some gains in your right bicep from the neurological effect that occurs, which is crazy.
That is like sci-fi magic. That's nuts.
It's crazy. I forgot there's a term, and I mentioned the term.
Yeah, I remember we've talked about this before.
What it's called. I think we did. Yeah.
It's wild.
Forgot it, but
it's wild.
Yeah.
But I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's not such a far stretch when you think about, like, first of all, our bodies are amazing and they're so resilient and they're so adaptive. So that makes sense to an extent. But also when you think about, like, like you said, months off from not doing anything, how quickly our bodies can remember it and get back into that groove. Like, your body wants to be active and strong and maintain the muscle and the body composition that you worked for. So it makes sense that, like, it's doing everything it can to kind of stay there as long as you're supporting it in an intelligent way.
And it doesn't take that much to maintain muscle once you've built that muscle. And that's why like, I just like punch myself. I don't punch myself, but I'm just mad at myself for like not spending time building muscle and like at maintenance or in a slight surplus for like the majority of years, where I was like trying to diet and trying to, build muscle at the same time for so long. And I'm just spinning my wheels. And like, now all the things I know, I'm like, I look back and I'm just like, oh, I wasted so much freaking time. If you spend time getting a little uncomfortable, periodizing your training, your nutrition for the long term, and you like have a roadmap that you're following, right? And you know where you want to be, there's going to be times where you need to spend in uncomfortable positions, i.e. for most women, spending time in a surplus, building muscle. Building muscle is not comfortable, right? Seeing the scale go up is not comfortable. But if you can get over that and look at the long-term gratification versus the short-term satisfaction, you will absolutely see tremendous progress in the long term, because you spent time fueling appropriately, recovering appropriately, building muscle, so that in a year from now, you can unveil that muscle, go into fat loss phase if you'd like, and your body composition looks completely different. But you have to spend the time actually eating enough food to do that. Because then once you've done that, you can do it again if you want, but you can also realize that it doesn't take as much to maintain that too, right? So that's just, I went off on a rant there, but
love it. Love it. That's what the podcast is for. That's literally why we're here. But I hope that is helpful for, because we do get this question a lot, and I understand the frustration too. Because like I said, we've all been there. I talked probably too much on this podcast about my frustration with like how I had to change my training when I was pregnant and postpartum, and having a gym that was closed for 2 years. That sucked. Like, prior to that whole multi-year experience of my life, I was a gym rat who was in the gym 5 to 6 days a week for 15 years or something. Like, it was pretty regular. And then to have that completely shut out and just try to like grapple with what can I do, or what should I do, or how do I maintain, I had to learn a lot and be frustrated and readjust. And, it worked out, and I learned things that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So it's all good in the end. But, I understand the frustration, I guess is what I'm saying. I hear you guys, and like, being injured sucks. Being sick sucks. Not being able to work out and do the things that make you happy sucks. And the only thing that would suck more is prolonging that by rushing or doing something that isn't thoughtful, right? So.
Yeah. And it's that saying, like, take one step backwards to take 3 steps forward, right? Think about it that way too.
Yeah.
It's
Long term, like you have to just sort of like work against that culture of immediate gratification, like do the thing that feels really good now that could really screw you over later, and just, practice a little delayed gratification. It's good for everybody.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about what we think about cold therapy, cold water therapy, cold plunge therapy. Obviously, that person has not been on my Instagram lately.
Yeah.
Where
what are you
I
doing?
did a cold plunge. Hello.
Hello.
But it's funny because
signs for what? I mean, what? The Muscle Maven on Instagram, and freaking watch her blah, blah, blah. I can't talk. Cold plunge reel.
Although it's funny
badass.
because you and I were texting about it and you were like, why would you do that? That sounds terrible. And I'm like, agreed. But it's funny because I've talked about this. Like, I am not personally somebody who does cold showers, because a hot shower is like my true happy place. And I just really love a scalding hot shower. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm not willing to end it in freezing cold water. I live in a cold place. I'm not about that life. However, I actually like the more difficult, prolonged, like ice bath dip or like cold plunge. And I like it more for the mental resilience that it builds, probably, than whatever health benefits there are. Although I will say, every time I do it, I feel like $1,000,000 afterwards. Like, it feels like you just got a massage and drank something refreshing and had a great night's sleep. Like, it literally, all of that rolled into one after you do a cold plunge. So again, there's got to be some benefits. I think there are other podcasts and experts who talk about this much more in depth than we could. Like, I think Peter Attia talks about it a lot. I think Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks about it a lot. I think probably Andrew Huberman has talked about it on his podcast. Like, all of these super smart people have done their studies. I personally like a cold plunge every now and then. And it's fun to like do with other people too. Like, I had my girlfriend do it with me. We just walked into a lake a couple days after Christmas. It was, 30 degrees, around 30 degrees outside, and probably are about that in the water. And, but it's funny too, because with these challenging things, and like we talked about in a recent podcast about like doing things that make us uncomfortable, it's like almost always the like anticipation that is worse than actually doing it. Because this cold plunge was my idea. And I told my girlfriend, we're going to do it. And then for like the next week, I was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. It sucks. Maybe we shouldn't do it. And she's like, no, we're doing it. And then I'm like, oh, this is going to suck. This is going to suck so much. And then I walked in, and even as I was walking in to that freezing cold water, I was like, this is kind of cool. This is kind of nice. And then you get in there and you force yourself to really, like, I don't know, maybe again, I'm crazy. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But I really like the practice of like trying to work against your body's natural reaction to like gasp and freak out and run away. To be fair, that video, we were only in the water for like 15 seconds. And I could have done, like, I wanted to do like 30 seconds or a minute, but my girlfriend was like, nope. And I kind of followed her out, but like, I, would do it again anytime. You want to do it, Rachel, with me? I'm happy to do it. But it's, when you get your chest, when you get your heart under the cold water, your body, it reacts. And so forcing yourself to like slow your breathing and just feel what's happening and tell your brain you're not dying until it believes it and your body reacts accordingly. It's a cool process. It's just interesting. So I guess long story short, I'm into it. I mean, I don't think it's something like you have to do. I think if it's something that appeals to you and is interesting to you, and doing it relatively regularly could be something that can potentially help with immunity, can potentially help with mental resilience. I know one of my girlfriends, Amanda, she does just like a face one. So like she'll just get like a big bowl of ice water and just like slam her face into it for a while, hold her breath. And that's just like, it's like has like skin tightening properties. You come out and it's just like you drank like 5 cups of coffee. You just feel so energized. Maybe that's something you try, because it's, I would think that would probably be easier than dumping your whole body into a cold bath. But anyway, that's my thoughts. What do you think about cold plunge?
No, I think it can definitely have benefits for everything that you mentioned. I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here on the other side of things and say to really understand though where you're at, and realize, like you said, every now and then, especially for women who are already overstimulated are already stressed out, are maybe in a calorie deficit, are fasting, or doing all these things where they're really putting themselves in a sympathetic state, right? And their nervous system is in overdrive. Doing a cold plunge is probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
Especially like once in a while, yes. And obviously I'm speaking to the person who's already, like I said, your stress is already overloaded, right? You need to be careful with that, because that could cause more harm by putting yourself in more of a sympathetic state, more in overdrive, your nervous system in more overdrive, than it could be a benefit. And so that's just something that I would say, think about that, because it's just like anything else. Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And you have to understand like your own circumstances and where you're at. So
that's a very good point. Very good point. And it's a hormetic stressor, right? So it's one of these things that the whole point is that you do it in small measured doses to increase your resilience. If you are currently super stressed out, your immunity is shot, you're sleeping badly, you're drinking coffee to get through the day, you're working super long hours, whatever, you have a stressful life, don't add more stress. We should all kind of, I think, collectively be looking for more little mini things throughout the day that are the opposite of doing a cold bath, that are like, can you sit quietly in a room and listen to relaxing music? Can you,
or a hot bath? That is like,
or a warm bath and read a book or something. Like that's something. It's funny because I've been trying to work on this with a couple of my clients, where it's like, if we focus on some of this, like stress management, lowering your cortisol, finding times of calm and stillness in your life, it's like we almost have to approach it like it's a job or part of a training plan, or else they don't want to do it. Like if I'm just like, hey, just relax and treat yourself. They're like, no. I'm like, okay, here's your plan. 5 days a week, go sit over there and be quiet. They're like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? Like you have to like make it like this thing you have to do.
100%. I do that with my clients too. We literally have a checklist and they have to check the box on the days that they're like, okay, self-care, take a bath and put a candle on, or light a candle, check the box that you did that. Like,
yeah, I love it. And that's actually something like sort of a mini New Year's goal of mine that I'm trying to like just sort of add little mini moments or experiences of like chill vibes through the day. And like, it sounds really vague, but like, it's like exactly what you said. Like when you're having dinner, light a candle, turn on some like mood lighting. Like when I'm sitting around working, like put on some of those like soothing spa binaural beats. And like, again, I don't know, candles are big. It's a good mood setter, but like little things like that take 2 seconds that can add to cumulatively over your day or week. You're like, things just feel a little nicer, you know, like these are things I have to do every day. I got to make dinner. I got to eat it. I got to sit here and work. I have to do my laundry, like and I'm even trying to like listen to like a little bit less true crime podcasts and listen to like music instead, like it doesn't always have to be like bad, stressful, intense, like just chill vibes, guys. Chill vibes.
Okay. So I follow this, I don't know what it's called. Something like My Therapist or whatever. Like, I don't know, something on Instagram, and they post like these really funny memes about just like self-care stuff and whatever. And there was a meme that was literally, I looked at it like earlier today, and it was like someone who has anxiety and drinks, or someone who complains about having anxiety and drinks a full nitro cold brew and then puts on a true crime podcast. And I was like,
are you talking to me?
Yeah. Well, not the anxiety part, but I was like, that's funny. And I mean, this reminded me of Ashleigh.
But again, you're exactly on point, because people who are like type A, go get it, like goal-oriented, go people, we keep attracting that kind of behavior, and there's no balance. Like there's nothing wrong with being a like hardworking type A, high energy person. Like I have grappled honestly with like being an intense person and people giving me shit about it. And I've come to a point in my life where I'm like, I'm never going to be like super laid back, chill surfer girl. That's not who I am. But there's nothing wrong with trying to find balance. Like just sometimes be still and like, don't look at screens and just sit and maybe let yourself be bored on the couch for 10 minutes and put on a candle. Like it's just, it could be really good for you.
Eat some ice cream.
Eat some ice cream. Oh, Good point, because I just made my first ice cream of the year
You did.
with one of our sponsors, Active Stacks, obviously, because you gotta add the Active Stacks. But I also added the eggnog protein powder. That's a different company in Canada that they make like,
It
sort
looks
of
really
novelty
good.
flavors. Are you eggnog person? Because people are either really into it or really not
I
into it.
just like have not really had it.
Yeah, you
Just
don't
because like
partake.
I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I don't usually like try to drink my calories. So like I've always never like had,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
if I'm going to have a alcoholic drink, it's like that plus the eggnog's like, damn, that's a lot. Like I'd rather have a cookie and like
eggnog.
something else.
The idea of
okay.
like creamy eggnog with like booze in it is like a problem for me. But the flavor of
I mean,
eggnog,
I think I would enjoy that, but my
it's a
stomach
bit
probably
much.
won't.
It's a bit much, yeah.
Yeah.
But we got to get this Ninja Creamy on like as a sponsor, like every single time. And I know you do too. Every single time I post that I made ice cream, everyone is like, how, what's a Ninja Creamy? What did you do? Where do you get it? Like people are obsessed. Like we need to reach out to the Ninja people.
So I was going to tell you this, but the blog post that I wrote on how to make the protein ice cream with the Ninja Creamy, it's like blown up, like on Google. It's like on first page.
Send that shit to literally
that's
the corporate offices. Yes.
That's the plan.
But
it takes a little bit of time. It was written in September. And so it takes a few months for it to like start to build, and you have to like optimize it, and I'll do the blog stuff. But
amazing.
It's all there.
Well, in the meantime,
Stacks,
yes, Active Stacks. So my ingredients, by the way, for anybody who cares, because this is how this Ninja Creamy works, is you don't have to add like stabilizers and super high calorie ingredients. But I do usually use like really good quality, like whole milk instead of like a milk alternative, because I'm just not about milk alternatives personally. I just would rather drink milk, and I can handle dairy. I mean, coconut milk sometimes, but it makes everything very coconut flavored. Anyway, whole milk, Active Stacks vanilla, which they use all like natural ingredients, like actual vanilla paste. It's not vanilla flavoring, which is amazing. And then this eggnog protein, and then some like pumpkin spice, and crushed. It tasted exactly like eggnog. It was amazing. And
the consistency.
But this is what I was going to tell you. This is what I'm going to tell you, because this was a secret that I was like, I have to tell you what I've been doing with the Ninja Creamy, because I follow your instructions, because obviously you're the queen of this, because you've been doing it for a while. You use the light ice cream button, presumably just because you're making light ice cream, right? Like you're not using like eggs and heavy cream and whatever people put in their ice cream. I just used regular ice cream. I'm like, I'm just gonna see what happens here. I don't know. And I found I need to experiment more, but the 2 times I did it, I found that it actually had a fluffier consistency and less going back in and redoing it.
Okay.
So I don't know if like the real ice cream button is just like more heavy duty or something. I don't know.
I think it's so the light ice cream one is because I think it has to do with the base that you're using too. So if you're using whole milk, the fattier the base is, heavier, like the more ice cream it will be. So that makes sense that you're using whole milk. Use the real ice cream thing, whatever it is, button.
Yeah. It was amazing. Anyway, all that to say, Active Stacks is a great ingredient to use in your ice cream making and or your baking, or if you just want to add some high glycine. It's glycine, right? That's the good amino acid. Yeah. High glycine sort of protein powder to your shakes, or, post workout or whatever. It's not a complete protein similar to.
It is a complete protein, but it just doesn't have as much. Yeah. It just doesn't have as much of like leucine that like a whey protein would have.
Okay.
So the amino acid profile is just not as robust from like the quantity that like a whey protein, because it's beef isolate protein.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just not as high in leucine, but
okay. Yeah. All right, great. So, I mean, people, again, we wouldn't say like use this as your main source of protein, period, but it's certainly a great addition, especially for people are always asking us how to get more protein. I'm like, hi, make ice cream and put Active Stacks in it. Like,
please.
Perfect. So yeah, check them out, activestacks.com. And the code that we have for you is MSW10. And then if you want to add even more nutrition to your ice cream, I haven't done this yet, and I think you actually should, is add some optimal carnivore organ meat supplements to your ice cream. Have you tried? Because I know I know you sprinkle it on your food sometimes.
I do. And I sprinkle on Lilo's food too. But I haven't tried it in the ice cream.
You wouldn't taste it. That's the thing. Like, unless you're putting like 4 or 5 pills. And if you use like maybe a stronger flavor, because another question I was going to ask you is, have you ever considered trying to make kabocha squash flavored ice cream?
I haven't, but that is amazing. And I might have to do it.
Thank you. Right? Like you can make, like,
it's like pumpkin.
Exactly. And I mean, it's interesting, just like any kind of like squash flavored dessert is going to be good. And look, you buy 50 squashes a day. Like you might as well turn one into ice cream, right?
Oh my God.
I know, you're crazy.
Delicata squash is going out of season. I've been on a delicata kick, and kabocha has taken a back seat the last 4 months because of delicata.
R.I.P.
I am like going to it's going to come back, but I've been going to all the grocery stores and like stocking up. You should see the people's faces looking at me like, what is this crazy lady doing?
I would do that too.
Thing full of, because once you have them, it's like it lasts months.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it stays for months if it's in like a dark place, but they're going out of season in the grocery store. So I'm like, I'm just going to go to every single store and like literally have a closet full of, because it doesn't fit in my kitchen anymore. There's literally a bag of delicata squash in my closet right now.
Speaking of true crime, anybody who's listening who watches or listens to true crime, it's like you always joke about like anybody who seems too nice, like go into their freezer and they probably have like a person in there. Like imagine somebody for the first time goes into your house and sees like a closet full of squash and they're just like, who is this psycho? Like what the hell are they doing with the squash? That's weird, dude.
Oh boy, yeah.
But listen, hey.
Thanks for like
listen, maybe you're crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. It's a, listen, make that ice cream, please.
And I'm not going to be sorry about it.
Yeah. Don't be sorry about it. It's what makes you great. So make some squash ice cream, please. Report back. I would actually really be interested in that. And that's what I'm saying. Like you can add, so the optimal carnivore, it's just pills, right? Desiccated organ meats, which you can of course just swallow like a pill, and it makes it very easy. We use it kind of like a,
that's what I do.
Multivitamin. Yeah. But if you're like, for me, when I'm trying to like feed my kid more healthy food, and he's not going to swallow a pill because he's 1.5 years. So I will sprinkle some of that on top of his food. Doesn't taste it, adding some nutrients. You can do that with your desserts. I'm a huge fan of like adding, whether it's collagen or whatever, like organ meat powder to your stuff. If you can add stuff like that and it doesn't change the flavor, like why wouldn't you, right? You're going to eat the stuff anyway. You might as well make it healthier. So Optimal Carnivore, their code, we'll put this all in the show notes because I know you guys aren't like writing this down. Their code is MuscleSci, so MUSCLESCI, and they want to direct you to their Amazon page because that's the best way to order their stuff. If you have any questions about any of these products, like you can always reach out to us because we can either answer it for you or we can get in touch with our folks and get answers about any of the products. So that's that. And I think that does it for today. I think that wraps it up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
I guess I'll see you. When this comes out, we might either be in New York together or almost there. So
a few weeks.
That's pretty exciting. That's going to be a fun episode is when we get back, we can do like a download from our
recap
Lost in New York trip.
So excited. We talk about all the food we ate.
Oh yeah. And workouts we did. I think we should try to find like, in addition to just going to like a gym and doing like our workouts, I think we should try to find like a weird gym that has like some trendy, fatty workout and go do it. Like, I think that would be fun. Like I used to always do that when I lived in New York. I'd be like, oh, some new weird gym opened up. Like, let's go try it. Cause it's like, there's no more ridiculous workouts and like gym concepts than in New York. Right. So there's gotta be some weird ones that we can check out. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.